This here is a human life. And down here is a poor drawing of a little baby in a nappy. And over here is the end of the time in this body on this planet. And this is the journey of life. And how we traverse the journey of life. When you're born as a baby, you live in your bedroom, your parents' house, and you believe that you see the whole world. So at this age, this is what you can see. You see your bedroom, you see your salon, you see the park near your house, you see your parents, and you think that's the whole world. At the age of 3, you go to nursery, you go out to school, and your vision is now higher. And you realize there was more to the world than just your bedroom, than your parents' house, than the local park. There's school, and you start to make friends. And maybe your parents had dreams for you. Now you meet friends, and one friend wants to play football for Barca Football Club. So you take that dream and you start to collect it and put it in your backpack. And you go, and when you're 12, you go from junior school to senior school. And you realize the world is bigger than you thought here. Your eyesight is now even higher. You see all of this. And when you're young, you think that you know everything. You think that this that you've seen is everything there is. Because that's all you know. And as you're coming up, you're meeting other people and you're hearing their goals and their dreams. And maybe your father wanted to play rugby for Ireland. Your mother wished that she'd learnt to speak French fluently. And what you do is you just take these dreams of other people and you go putting them into your backpack. And as a young person going from 0 to 3 to 5 to 12 to 18 to 20, here we are going to university. The world is bigger. My backpack gets even fuller. I meet a girl. We live together, and all of her dreams now become mine. And my backpack fills up with projects that I want to do, dreams I have, places I want to travel to, skills I'd love to have. And by the time you're 30, you still are in this world of thinking that you've seen everything, thinking that this is all there is. And your backpack at this stage is totally full of all of the projects of your parents, your grandparents, your school, everyone you've met, any dream that anyone's had. It costs you nothing just to pick up that dream and add it to the collection of things that you want to achieve in your life and add it into the backpack. Because on this journey up, you know that time is finite, but you don't believe it. You live as if you have infinite time and you could just keep adding projects. There comes a moment in life where you take a step up and for the first time, your view is not the mountain, it's actually to the horizon. And this mentor told me that this moment happens anywhere from 35 to 55 years old. The first step where you stand up and for the first time ever in your life, you really do see the horizon. And at exactly the same moment, 35 to 55 years old, where you see the horizon, you also get your very first glimpse down at the finiteness of your life. And what this mentor told to me is there are 2 types of grandfather. There's the positive, helpful, kind, caring, present, generous grandfather that's a real pleasure to be around. And there's the bitter, angry, victim, frustrated grandfather. And how you arrive down here is fundamentally due to a choice you take when you are here. There's 2 ways that you can live this moment of realizing the finiteness of life and realizing what the horizon really is. Because up at this point, your backpack is absolutely jammed full of every dream, every project, every skill you want to learn, every place you want to go. And if you don't unload this backpack and take out pretty much everything that isn't fundamentally yours, isn't a goal that really came from you. It's really your father's goal, your mother's goal, your friend's goal, society's ideal. If you don't take that backpack off and unload the weight, you're going to just tumble down and be an angry, frustrated old person. 35 to 55, there comes a moment when you see this glimpse, and it's a scary thing. What needs to happen for you to come down this hill, and for every step down this hill to be a positive step towards being at peace with yourself, a serene old person, a grandfather that really can give back wisdom to those around you, is that this backpack, you take it off, you put it on the floor, you empty it out, and you decide what are the really important ones, and everything else you are willing to let go of. And this project, 35 to 55 years old, of taking your backpack full of all these dreams and hopes and projects, taking it off, laying it on the floor, and slowly identifying the ones that really are important. That in this time that remains, there is time to do what is important. If you can do that, then the way you'll arrive down here is with serenity, with peace of mind, with a feeling that you have lived this journey of life. And for me, there's where we lost the pen lid here. The Warren Buffett has a story he tells, what's told about him, of this process of taking out all of the clutter that's in the bag of your dreams and laying it out. And the story is that Warren Buffett has two private jets, and he has a pilot called Steve. And for 5 years, Steve was working at Berkshire Hathaway, flying Warren around. And Warren doesn't like anyone just stuck in a role. And for 5 years, he'd seen Steve just flying jets. So on one trip, Steve was asked by Warren, he says, Steve, you've been flying aircraft here for us at Berkshire Hathaway for the last 5 years. I really like to see people growing and taking on new things. I'd love if you just help me understand what's important to you. And he asked Steve, would you take a couple of weeks and identify the 20 most important things in your life that you'd like to achieve in the rest of your life? And he said, Steve, take your time, do this well. Really make sure that these 20 things capture the 20 most important projects, people, activities, achievements that you would like to have, to dedicate the rest of your life to. And Steve, as a corporate private jet pilot, you have a lot of time on your hands as a private pilot. So he had a lot of time over the next few weeks to create his list of the 20 projects that if he were to have completed by the end of his life, it would be a fulfilling life of achieving his goals. And after 6 weeks, there came a moment where Steve said, Warren, I've got the list. I've worked on it. I've really ensured that it's the top 20. And Warren said, good. Now what I would like you to do is identify the top 5 of those 20. So, really take time to really match each things and make sure that you've identified the top 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 most important projects, people, things that really, if you got those, you would be fulfilled at the end. And it took another few weeks of Steve sitting and thinking and comparing one by one these different projects and activities. And after another few weeks, Steve said, Warren, I've got the top 5. I've got the 20 and I've got the top 5. I've done the work. I've compared each of them. I'm sure the top 5 really are the top 5 out of this 20. And Warren said to him, good. What are you going to do with number 6 to 20? And Steve thought a little and he said, well, clearly 1 to 5 are very important, but number 6, number 7, they're still important. They're still in the top 20 most important things I'd like to achieve. And Warren said, no, The reason you won't do the most important thing is reason number 6, 7, and 8. What's going to stop you achieving the things that are most important to you? What's holding you back from investing in the relationships that are most important to you is not distraction from Facebook. It's not projects that are down on level 100 on your list. It's the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th most important things. And seeking perspective. It is very difficult for someone at 20, at 30, at 40 to have the perspective to understand what life is going to be like 20, 40, 50 years later. I've just got off a call over the last hour with someone who is 15, 20 years older than me. And I was really interested in what this experience is being like for him. And a lot of the questions were selfish questions from my point of view, because I was really looking at what would it be like for me in 15 years? What needs to be in place in my life in 15 years if this type of economic impact, health impact were to strike again? What foundations do I need to start building now so that 15 years from now, whatever crisis were to come, whatever good opportunities were to come, I'm putting some seeds in now. And very often, the important seeds to plant now, my 47-year-old eyes cannot see, cannot judge, cannot tell what is important. It's only sitting down with someone who's 15, 20, 30 years further on down the path. And not everyone's perspective is useful. You know, if you know someone that is a negative, bitter victim down here, they are not someone that you want their perspective. Well, maybe you want their perspective so you know what not to do. But you want to find people that you look at their life and they're either further down the path than you, or they've got an area of life where they seem to have it together. And what I've learned is I never ask for their advice. Successful people, when they give you advice, it's never particularly helpful. They have a nice little recipe, but it's not really true. Very often when I meet someone who is 20 years older than me, the question that I will ask is, 20 years ago, what big things were going on in your life? Were there any decisions that you were struggling with? Were there any doubts that you had? Take me back. Where were you 20 years ago? What was going on? And over the last 15 years, some of the most profound lessons about how to live my life now, how to determine what's important, what's lesser important now, have come from listening to someone share the answer to that question. I find when I ask someone, hey, tell me what you think I should do, it's often not very helpful, that type of advice. What I want is not what they would do. I want their perspective, what they were looking at, what was important, what was lesser important. And when they then talk about 20 years ago, what were they paying attention to? What felt like it was important back then, but no longer is important from the perspective that they have? And I think one of the things that I hope in the world, and through Vistage and through EO and through my courses in ESA, is that whenever you face a major problem in life, before you look for a textbook, you think, who has already lived through this decision? Who is already 15, 20 years beyond having taken this decision? They seem to have done it well. And rather than looking at a textbook, go find that person and have a conversation and listen. And just listen to what life was like for them. And this idea that I think we really only learn two ways in life. One, through our own experience. Second, through the experience of other human beings, but only if we receive three parts to the communication. We need three parts. One, what happened? Two, why was it important to you? Three, what was it like for you? What did it feel like going through the journey? And it's a lie if anyone says, oh, it was a simple decision. The decision at 20 to take this job or that job, if you think it was easy, it's because you don't remember what it was like for you when you were 20. One of the things that was inculcated in me from a very young age was just noting down every day in a journal what I'm thinking about, what life is like, what struggles I had. And I can look back to when I was 20 and 25, and it was a hard time. I didn't look like I was having a hard time, because at that age, you need to project outwards that you have a lot of things under control. At many ages, you need to project outwards that you have many things under control. But if I'm honest with what it was like being 14 and 16 and 20 and 25 and 28, there were some tough decisions that I was taking by myself, that I was scared, and my uncertainty meant that instead of reaching out and asking others for their perspectives, and I think back then I would probably ask them for advice, and that's a very dangerous thing. You don't want anyone's advice. If you're a 20-year-old and your father is giving you advice, don't listen to it. It's not for you. It's something he needs to say, but it's not for you. What's valuable is turning the question around and saying, when you were 20, what decisions were hard for you? What were you struggling with? What was going on? Where were you? In fact, my parents were interviewed by one of their granddaughters last week. The school had given a project, and they were to ask, when you were 12, what were you dealing with? Where were you? What was going on? And it was fascinating. I didn't see this conversation, but I heard from my brother how this conversation revealed things about my parents. Just instead of them giving advice, they were talking about what it was like for them to live being 10 or 20 or 30. So this thing is, when you want to get a good perspective from someone else, don't let them give you advice. Ask them to share what it was like for them to face a similar decision. Ask them how it was impacting them. What was important to them? What were they valuing at the time? What did they fear that they were going to lose if things didn't turn out at the time? And that way, if you get these three things: what happened, why it was important to you, and what was the inner experience like? What were you feeling? Then you can use that experience and not make a mistake yourself, or not have to live the hard way to learn the lesson. But I do think a leadership textbook can't help, because what someone did in the past without why it was important to them and what it felt like when they were dealing with it, it's not going to help you be ready to deal with the tough decisions in your life. So this is sort of an idea on perspectives, and I think perspectives is really starting to think that the most important question you ask when you face any problem is, who has successfully dealt with this? And how can I have a conversation with them where I don't ask for their advice, I just ask, when you were facing this, tell me about it. What was important? What were you worried about? What were you paying attention to? Where were you focused on? What did you hope for? And what was the inner experience? What did you feel like? What were you struggling with? Who helped you? And if you ask these questions, the perspective becomes something that you can use to really commit yourself to your decisions. And I guess, our lives and the lives of our kids are getting more and more necessary to take significant life decisions as we progress. My grandfather, when he was 21, he passed some exams and he got a job at the Bank of Ireland. 65 years old, he retired, 2/3 final pension. So really, the last time he took a decision about the direction of his life in a professional sense was at 21, when he showed up for the exams. Today, each of us listening, you, me, we're taking a decision every 2 or 3 years about whether what we're doing right now is the right thing for us, whether we should change, look for something else. And it can be a very exhausting life if every one of those decisions you're taking by yourself. Every one of those decisions you're taking only with your own life experience, only with your own eyes that have seen, in my case, 47 years, but not the fullness of how decisions I could take today will impact me in 10, 15, 20 years. So this thing of, we believe great leaders seek perspectives. Seek perspectives from suppliers, seek perspectives from customers. Just, there's the silly story of two blindfolded men feeling an animal, and one feels this trunk and one feels a leg, and they're fighting over what it is, and they're just touching two different parts of an elephant. Really understanding, really getting deep down that your perspective on life is just one small glimpse of life, and you have to raise up and get other people's perspectives in order to see the terrain as it truly is.